We were the first franchise in the Southeast Asian region. India came much after us.
Girls getting married, rishtas, in terms of their value, do they still think about color?
Chaos is there.
Models, makeup artists get caught up in certain headlines. Recently we had that with Nimra Jacob, with Hasnain, Lehri.
The digital world in one way is great. In one way, it's very, very bad.
So there is a difference between London Fashion Week and, let's say, Pakistan Fashion Week in terms of the chaos backstage.
I think a lot of Asian Pakistani men don't want to engage in that conversation.
What do you think of Mahira Khan's wedding look? Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone to this week's episode of Really Real with Alizeh. This episode is special because my reason to smile is someone who is a true superhero for any woman out there. And what makes this episode a little more special is that it's sponsored by Halal Foods. Talking about reason to smile. As a girl of today, we have many things that can make us smile. But something that makes me smile from my heart is when I look at my mentors and women in the industry having achieved not just national but international success. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest. She is someone who is a trailblazer in the beauty industry. She is the chairwoman and the managing director of Toni&Guy South Pakistan, Essentials and Spa Salon Pakistan. I'm talking about none other than Saeeda Madviwala. Saeeda, I am so honored to have you here because not just as part of the youth of Pakistan, as a woman, I'm feeling very proud, and I think that's my reason to smile because I'm looking forward to learning about how you really took a challenge and were brave 20 years ago.
Oh, wow. So, 20 years ago, a lot of things were very different. And yes, they were very challenging times. I think even today is challenging. But if I look back, I think the first thing for me really was to bring this brand to Pakistan was about, can I do this? Self-assurance, confidence. And to be very honest, it costs money. And there was no access to any financial help through any institutions. So a lack of funds and a lack of... So I think those challenges were huge at that point. The other challenge for me was that I had a family already. I had children. And I needed to satisfy certain requirements from the brand to bring it here, which meant a lot of training, which meant a lot of my time being away from my kids and my family. That was a really hard juggle. I did have a very good support group, but even then, it was the first time that I'd actually left them for that amount of time. So that was a huge challenge. And of course, coming with that challenge was a lot of guilt.
You've read my mind. Nowadays we are having open conversations. Celebrities are coming out there and talking about mom guilt. So it's common. But back then, was it even normal to have mom guilt or talk about it?
It was kind of like the forbidden fruit. You couldn't have guilt because you either did it or you didn't. And if you did it, then, you had to hear a lot about it. So I think, yes, the guilt is always there. And sometimes when I look back and I think, have I done any kind of, I won't say damage, it's a bit of a hard word, but have I done anything not correctly? I think, maybe my youngest child didn't have the best of me.
That's very brave of you.
Yeah, because my older two did. I was there for them much more. Again, I think in a more positive light, our currency was stronger then.
There's a big deval, yes.
So even though it was tough and it was challenging, because of our currency, it was just easier to do business. The disparity was not so much. Plus, I think, again, and we still face that today in Pakistan because we are a developing country. And I think all developing countries do face this, that our taxations are very high. The transparency for imports is very sort of, it's not really there properly. And because of this, there's so much that happens in the grey markets that it affects us that are doing the legitimate businesses too as much as we can.
Yeah.
And so I think given that we are, whether it's man or woman, it's very challenging even now, simply because we have to look at the 360 of everything, import. We had an import ban, if you recall, about a year back.
Yeah.
And although it's been lifted somewhat, we still face challenges because you look at it, our products are supposed to be used every day or every other day, but they're classified as luxury items. So I think the challenges, again, going back to your question regarding, was it a big challenge? Yes, it was. The lack of funds, definitely. The support I had partially, not financially, but in other ways, in kind. So I think my family was very supportive. I had a good, supportive in-laws backing me, although they had their little, but by and large for that time, they were pretty good. And I think those challenges were difficult. And
it's very brave of you. You've actually been very candid so early on in the episode. And this is really great because people, budding entrepreneurs out there, we need them to have more managed expectations of what it really takes. So when we think about the last 20 years, why Toni&Guy? Why did you decide to bring that international beauty brand to Pakistan?
So my connection with the UK is very strong because although I was born in Sri Lanka, I moved to the UK when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So I went to school there, college there, and then I did hairdressing there. So I had, my parents' home was there. So I would go back, even after I was married, I would go back every so often and I would do a little course at Toni&Guy. And I think that connection of UK, Pakistan, and that was what I knew because that was my skill. Okay.
And you had studied that actually.
I studied it,
so you've technically, this is something you have a background in academically.
Yes, I went to the London College of Fashion for 3 years to study hairdressing and beauty therapy. And I have my certifications and diplomas in that field. And then I worked there for some time too.
That's, I think, how it should be. You should have, when you go into a field, technical field like beauty, you do need to have some technical understanding. But when you were thinking of bringing it to Pakistan, you touched upon the macroeconomic factors. You were aware that there was local competition at a much lower price point. Did that ever scare you from a business development perspective?
Of course, everything scares you when you're starting out. And if anyone says, no, that's not true. I mean, you are scared non-stop.
I'm scared right now.
Yeah. And I mean, we are all, you make a decision. And if that decision doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, it's scary. Yeah. And you hit rock bottom, you get up, you move on. And it's very easy to say perhaps now, but I was petrified, not scared, petrified. Could I repay that money that I had borrowed from my husband? Because there was nobody else to give me that money. And even then, he was starting out his life. He could barely give it to me. But because I kept pushing the button, and there, you come to a kind of an agreement.
A little off topic, but, you said he was also starting out. When you get married and you both are starting out, there's not, let's say, too much of an age gap between the woman or the man, or economically, you both are charting out the early stages of your career. How important is it to have a collaborative discussion on what the future lies for the husband and the wife economically?
Look, it is very important, but I think a lot of Asian Pakistani men don't want to engage in that conversation
About financial
inclusion
and independence,
and
God forbid.
independence. Yeah. Some of the time, well, let me say in my case,
Yes.
it was a question of, okay, so she's here, she's got this skill, she wants to do something. Okay, let me shut her up for a bit. Let me be honest. Not that it
Our
wasn't,
podcast is called Really Real, so this is just what we need.
and I don't mean shut her up in a bad way, okay? And honestly, I'm so grateful to my better half, other half,
a special shout out for
for
him.
supporting me. But you know, when you're building your life,
Yes.
then you focus on one thing, your family. And I think that's what he was doing. Like, I need to do this for my family. So I came as a number somewhere. But because I was so perseverant, and I said, no, I'm not going to hang around doing nothing. I want to do something. I managed to take that small amount of money and start something on top of my garage in my house. Paid him back. And he used to say, you're mad, the contractor's mad, and I'm mad to give you that money. But, you know.
Sometimes that amount of madness works.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, looking at it, I just think life is scary. Today, what you have, do you really know what's coming tomorrow? No, you don't.
Not the next moment.
No.
I could never imagine having this episode with you last season at this location with the team that I have.
Yeah.
And I think it's so great that, you know, the one thing that you're pointing at is don't let fear overtake your dreams.
No,
and we
don't.
have a great example in you.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Talking about customers, right? At this 20 mark, how has the customer evolved, the Toni&Guy customer?
So the customer is very aware of what's going on everywhere in every corner of the world. Digitally, travel-wise, what you see on all kinds of platforms, they know everything. In fact, when they walk into me, they want my place to be better, bigger, brighter, the work really up to mark, because they're like, you know what, I travel anyway. I can go to England, I can go to Paris, I can go to Dubai, and I can get my hair done at Toni&Guy. Why should I come here? They're also very savvy about products. So if you do not have a supply chain of good products, there's only limited amount of work you can do with your customer for your customer. They also want to feel like they're loyal to you. So you have to make them feel like they're your loyal customers.
So I guess these are the strategies that helped you when you thought about brand loyalty, bringing in a new brand to Pakistan.
Absolutely.
Because when we go to the salon, usually we are more towards the side of familiarity of the girl we go to, or we're just going there to just switch off. So how did you kind of tackle that? A new brand, a new identity?
Okay, so a new brand is always a question mark, right? And everybody will go initially to check it out because everybody will want to know what's in there for them. The only way you can bring a customer back is by consistency, quality, and by giving them the easiest self-care routine for their hair, their makeup, their skin, their nails. And they need to be convinced of it. So you've got to be so truthful to your customer. It's not just about selling your service or your product. It's about selling what you believe in.
It's like a philosophy that you hold by.
Yeah. And with us, it's all about now we support the customer with our 8 brand pillars in our Label M hair care. Same like we do with our skincare, which is Spa Salon. And all of these products that we use are all eco-friendly. They're all sustainable. They're biodegradable. They are, they come from heritage. So it's not something that was just formulated by 3 or 4 people.
Yes.
It comes from
years of proven success.
And science, technology. So when you look at these products, a lot of our products, they have a QR code on them. And you just have to scan it and it will tell you what's in the bottle, how it works, is it for your hair type, and all of that. So, I think the world is now changing because we are going to a much more, it's not just a cleaner world, but just it's got to be good for the environment. So it's got to be good for you.
That's really touching upon my next point, because the customer is changing, the world is evolving. But how much has the definition of beauty really evolved over the years?
It's huge. It's evolved. I mean, I think before beauty was how a person looks to another person. That was the symbol of beauty. It was
compared to the other.
Yeah, compared from one person to another and another. You're dark, you're fair, you're this, you're that, It's now, at least to me, beauty would mean courage.
Courage.
It would mean confidence. It would mean you smile at people. I always say smile doesn't cost anything. It's free. So why do you not do it more often?
That's a great way to put it. And, with Hilal Foods actually sponsoring our episode today, their whole tagline for their products was reasons to smile. So I got thinking, what's my reason to smile? And the one thing that I did think back a little bit was growing up, beauty's definition was still, and I'll be very honest, had to do with fairness. This was something growing up. Let's say I tried swimming. I would go for swimming lessons and they would happen at 2 to 3 p.m., the peak of the sun.
Yeah.
So I met some extended family members and they were old, and of course, respectfully so, that's something I think they weren't that aware of. But they met me and they said, oh, wow, you have become like black copper. And there was an Urdu, translation, which I wouldn't want to get into. And I do think at those years, that was very formative for my confidence and the impact it had on my courage and definition of beauty. Do you think in today's evolving, consumer base out there, girls getting married, rishtas, in terms of their value, do they still think about color?
No, not anymore. Or very few. Maybe in the suburban areas.
It's more common?
Maybe. But even then, I would like to sort of throw this out to everyone to say, look, Winnie Harlow, the first, not just black model, but with vitiligo, right? On Vogue magazine, right? Unheard of. If you look at Bollywood, we have people like Deepika. We have people like Alia Bhatt, who didn't wear any makeup on her big day.
The no makeup look, not on any day, but your wedding day.
Yeah. We have our own local models. For example, we have Amna Ilyas and this new girl, I forget her name, the curly head.
Yes, the curly head. And even
sorry.
I can't. Does anyone want to help us with what her name is?
Trinette.
Thank you.
Yeah, Trinette. She's dark. She's lovely. She's brilliant. In fact, I'll give you again.
Even Mush Kaleem has been very open about this,
yeah,
where she said, no, this is who I am. And certain brands, if they didn't want to work with her or they were changing her complexion, she said she didn't. And going back to brands, Fair and Lovely had to change its name to Glow and Lovely.
Yeah, they all did.
Dove did this commercial where they linked wrinkles, aging with beauty.
Yeah.
So do you think as women we're living at the right time?
Absolutely we are. Because you know what? I'm much older than you are. And sorry, I feel that I don't have to look like you, but I can still look good.
That's very well
I'm not
put.
your age and I don't want to
And
be.
why should you look like someone? There should be grace in every era. And that's the beauty.
And I don't want to look like my daughters or my daughter-in-law. I don't. I mean, coming back to this dark story.
Yes.
Skin. I'll tell you something. I mean, my own daughter, my middle one, at one point in her life, she always kept telling me, she said, Mom, why am I not your color? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, for God's sakes, you have a beautiful color. It's lovely. And she would always try to go a shade lighter. And I would say to her, why? And, you know, she had it in her head for whatever reason.
Because growing up, some things affect us and we don't realize what it is.
Yeah. And now she's moved. Okay. And she lives in a tropical climate. And she's the most beautiful tan skin tone. She looks so good. She looks natural. She looks healthy, radiant. And, you know, I joke with her. I said, so what happened? She goes, I moved to the tropics. I said, yeah, well, you really found yourself there.
It's, I guess, about finding yourself and your
it
comfort and your identity. And, you know, earlier you said beauty used to be what we were to someone else. Now it's what we are to ourselves. And that could evolve over time also.
And it's also about your personality. I think beauty, you know, you could walk in a room and look like a catwalk model. But if you don't exude that beauty to happiness, to that kindness, character, to gentleness, to character, then that beauty is like, you know, the concentration goes from here to there. Or
arrogance of that beauty.
Yeah.
When we're talking about almost inclusivity, I guess, on some level, you know, I had the great privilege to visit Toni&Guy South Pakistan, and I got my hair done and got my nails done. It was really a lovely experience. I saw that there were a lot of men in your salon working, completely comfortable with their gender and their craft. I found that to be very progressive, and I liked that. Is that a conscious HR effort on your part for men to be comfortable with the beauty industry?
So absolutely, because when I first came with the brand, so the one thing I found was that there was no unisex salon in the country. And to me, when I trained at Toni&Guy, I worked with men, with women, and with all types of people. And I thought to myself, and it was hard because I did get a lot of flack for this from people I knew, from people I didn't know, as to how can you, I remember I opened a salon at the Forum, and it was through a see-through glass. And at the opening, somebody came to me and said in Urdu, but ye to sab dikhta hai yahan. So I said, हाँ मैं कुछ छुपा तो नहीं रही हूँ, I'm just washing your hair.
बल्कि जो चीज छुपानी चाहिए वो ज़्यादा concerning होनी चाहिए.
So it was very difficult, and it was very difficult to make women feel comfortable in my environment. But I think I wanted to create a space where not only men and women could come together as couples, as husbands and wives, with their children, with their mom, with their dad, with their grandchildren. I wanted it to be an experience for everyone.
And a collective one.
Connective one. And in our workspace, it took a little time, to be very honest, to even show our staff, or for our staff to realize that this is a professional environment. None of these silly jokes or comments or whatever, they're not going to work here.
It's about merit.
So if you're going to, no, even merit, I would say, even if your work is 100% and your attitude is bad towards the other gender or to anybody else, sorry, you can't work here. You need to think about all of these people as a support environment for you. They're all your colleagues, and they should not be ridiculed because of what sex they are or what gender they are.
So workplace harassment, workplace safety were big values for Toni&Guy.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the reasons a lot of women don't go into areas where there are a lot of men around. Because I'm sure even somebody like me and you perhaps would feel uncomfortable if a man spoke to us in a different way than to his other colleague.
We would feel that.
Yeah. So for me, inclusivity was something I wanted to do from day one.
So Saeeda, talking about customers, competition, things in the digital world have changed. We have access to instant updates. Beauty and fashion are very interchangeable. And while it might seem glamorous, I can only imagine, with you being the expert here, that things are not all that easy on the ground. When we hear news, instant updates through social media of fashion week, fashion shows, backstage, front, models, makeup artists get caught up in certain headlines. You know, recently we had that with Nimra Jacob, with Hasnain, Lehri, and at some point, it became one person's word against the other. So what's your take? Actually, hota kya hai? And media, yeah, beauty industry, what's a better way to deal with a crisis like that?
So I think whenever we've done shows, backstage, front stage, all of that, and we've done quite a few, but let me tell you one thing, shows look very glamorous,
Yeah.
really fantastic, but they're damn hard work and they don't pay anything. Okay?
They don't.
No.
Then people do it for PR, marketing.
A lot of people do it for PR. Maybe there's a small token attached to it. But whenever I've done it, it's always been done at a professional level with a financial levy.
What does that mean?
I've been paid to do it.
Yeah.
The only time I perhaps didn't do it was one time when I did it on my own for Fashion Week in Karachi, and I showcased Toni&Guy as a fashion. But I've done backstage for various fashion weeks that have happened in the past, collaborated with Unilever for some of their retail product lines that have come in. And what happens is, I think, number one, you need to be professional. So you need to put down the rules. Backstage is chaotic. I mean, I've worked at London Fashion Week at Backstage with Toni and Guy, and I've seen the chaos, but it's an organized chaos.
So there is a difference between London Fashion Week and, let's say, Pakistan Fashion Week in terms of the chaos backstage.
Chaos is there.
Chaos
Any
is there.
fashion week, but it's organized chaos. So the thing is, health and safety hazards have to be looked at.
But where does harassment come in health and safety?
I'll tell you. So if you see an agitated star or a celebrity sitting on your chair, and they're getting more and more agitated, because sometimes, a new makeup artist could be doing their look, a new stylist could be doing their hair. They've never worked with that person and they're getting all irky, but why are you doing this and why are you doing that and why are you doing this? You need to handle that client, and more than you handling it, you have to have somebody on ground
to keep an eye on such situations building up.
Yes. And if you see it happening, you need to get involved and just take that person away and put another person and be very calm and say, look, are you okay? Is everything okay? What's going on? What's not going on? It's just about handling, because the minute something goes out of control, then you've lost that time element to control it.
And if there's a phone and there are pictures and videos, it becomes
goes viral.
There you go.
So the digital world in one way is great because it gets it out there like this. But in one way, it's very, very bad because you have to watch everything you say, everything you do. It could be in innocence. For example, I could be sitting here with you and I could be doing this on my nose and somebody would say she was picking her nose. Do you know what I mean?
Perspective,
yeah,
yes.
I mean, so these are the kind of things that get misconstrued.
But what's your take on cancel culture? Because a lot of people cancelled Hasnain and Lehri completely. What's your take when someone just gets cancelled?
I think it's very, it even happened just now with the singer, kya naam hai, what's his name?
Which singer?
Rahat Fateh Khan. You remember?
Of course.
Now that incident, slapping this, that, we don't know what exactly happened. The thing is, can you cancel everyone for everything?
Maria B.
Yeah.
Gets cancelled all the time.
If you are to speak your mind openly and honestly, take it as a constructive criticism or take it as a viewpoint from another person. Don't just say because it's like this, it has to be like this.
And then they're given no redemption, no second chances if there's atonement at any level.
Look, unless you're violating somebody, it's a human rights thing that you're violating somebody.
Like physical violence or physical abuse.
Violence, mental abuse, the little things that happen. I mean, they happen in my day-to-day life, in my work environment. I see it, little things. And if I was going to pick on everything, it just wouldn't work.
So before cancel culture, how were people cancelled? I'm sure there was disagreement back then.
I think previously there was in my business and in my arena, I think a lot of it was politics. Okay.
So there is under the table politics between different salons, competition. How does that happen?
Of course there is. Look, I think it's great because we should have healthy competition, right?
Yes.
I don't want to do something that is going to take away my staff time, my revenue time for nothing, for free. Okay. Simply because if I don't have a worth in myself, I don't have a worth in my staff and my time and ability. Maybe that's why you don't see me doing so many shows and so many things, because it is time away from the salon, which means revenue.
Are there any dirty politics that you've ever felt between salons where some other salons are trying to poach your employees?
That happens all the time.
And you know it's happening.
It's happening. Initially, I used to get very disturbed, very upset, felt very bad about it. Now I really don't
Ever
care.
found out that it was being done by some of your friends in the industry?
Look, I think I have never kept a friendly relationship with too many people in the industry.
Okay.
There are one or two that I am.
Who's your best friend in the industry?
Look, it's not about a best friend in the industry. I respect Nabila.
You respect her work?
I respect her as a person.
Yes.
Okay? So let's not get into that so much, but I'll tell you why I've not kept myself as a part of it. Because for me, I was always the outsider that came in. I wasn't from Pakistan. I came into the business where people were already established. They didn't want to know this new person who came in. So I just focused on my work. And I found that in this business, initially at least, you had to connect with the whole so-called celebrities, models, photographers, and people in the industry. And that was fine in a working time and a working arena, but it wasn't fine for me in my off time or my home time.
There was a boundary between professional and personal.
And I kept it from day one. So I think I was looked at in a strange kind of way as the snob, which really I'm not. But I wanted to have that very defined line. Okay.
And I respect where you're coming from. There's a personal reasoning which makes complete reasonable sense to me.
Yeah. So when you talk about poaching as well, I mean, you know what? Say 20 years ago, nobody ever poached any of my staff because they thought that the brand was not worth poaching. Now, because of our education that we give to our staff digitally on Zoom, during COVID, we went online with UK. I taught Multan, our other sub-franchise, entirely on Zoom, with UK connecting, me connecting, and them connecting. Of course, they came and went as well. But when you have education, not twice a year, but almost on a weekly basis, where you're connecting the worlds, look, 630 salons globally for Toni&Guy.
And isn't Toni&Guy South the biggest branch of Toni&Guy anywhere in the world?
It's the biggest in terms of the size.
Yes.
We were the first franchise in the Southeast Asian region. India came much after us. Sri Lanka, much later. We were the first hairdressing franchise in the Southeast Asian region.
If you look back to this achievement and if you had to choose one thing that was a secret to this success, because what you've just told me is magnanimous, what's that one success? The secret to the success?
I never look at it as, funnily enough, I don't think I'm still that successful. I still think there's so much more to do. And I'm not being humble or funny about it, but I just think that the success comes with time, with hard work, dedication. And you said one thing, right? One thing is it's you. You just keep battling every battle. You got to face it full on. Nobody's going to pick you up. Nobody's going to support you, good, bad, or ugly. You've got to take it as a positive. You've got to take it as a negative and say, I'm going to do it better. Yes, it was my mistake. Own up to what you do wrong.
Yes.
And feel good about what you do right.
And that's a lot of accountability in what you've just said. So you have extensive work, academic experience, professional experience in the UK. What's the biggest difference when you look at people working in the UK and professionalism in Pakistan?
So it's even changed in the UK. 50 years ago in the UK, hairdressers were looked down upon. Okay? Today it's changed. And I think 20 years ago here, we were looked down upon. And it's begun to change in the last maybe 5-10 years. Okay? 5 years.
The respect that this industry commands.
The respect, because of the education that goes into it, because of the people who are committed to it. Look, my team, I take them to the UK twice a year.
Your marketing team was telling me.
I have a batch going now for 7 weeks. That's a lot of time away. It's hard for me to take them out. It's hard for them to go and leave their families. But they know that there is a professional ladder that they're climbing. So when I say the difference is constant learning. You know, here we sometimes feel like we're stars and we know it all. That feeling should never happen to anyone in any sphere, in any sector of life. We always have to learn something from someone because somebody knows it a little bit better and a little bit more accurate.
No, there's a lot of grace, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of humility in what you're saying. Why is it that the beauty industry or fashion or media still in Pakistan has negative connotations of, it's not dirty, but it's a scary place to be? Every place can be scary, but there's still this connotation attached.
Sometimes it's you're looking at somebody as a dumb blonde, okay? I remember when you first came and I was introduced to people, and my husband's a lawyer actually, so obviously he has that status of education, blah, 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 all of that. So when people didn't know me and spoke to me and said, so what do you do now? And I said, I'm just the hairdresser, you know. It's like, but how can you be a hairdresser, you know? What people don't understand is this skill today, in today's world, any skill that you master and you have the power of knowledge can take you anywhere. It's not just about being a lawyer, engineer, or a doctor anymore. And a lot of mindsets have changed. Maybe it's an Asian thing more now that our daughters or our sons should not become hairdressers or makeup artists.
It's almost seen like a secondary tier of profession, and they might want to speak in a hushed tone when they're telling their family members what profession their son or daughter do. Ke wo hairdresser hai. You know, this tone drops. But I do think there's a big difference.
Things have changed a lot now.
I think social media has a big part to play. If you can brand yourself the right way.
And I won't call us really just hairdressers. We're all in a way budding entrepreneurs. Look at what you're doing today. You know, I mean, you can classify it if you want in a negative way and say, wo to interview kar rahi hai. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yes. There's a way you put things.
There's a big difference of looking at things. And I think the youth of today, they don't care what they do as long as they make good money out of it and as long as they're good at their job.
And they're happy with what they're doing. Yeah. Who is a personality or a brand that you would love to collaborate with through Toni&Guy?
Are you talking locally or internationally?
I leave that up to you. You can choose. You can give us one local, one international.
So, you know, there are many brands locally that would be amazing to collaborate with. And we have collaborated with a few. I would love to do a fashion week in the UK representing Pakistan. So be able to take a bunch of Pakistani designers where we can do their hair, makeup, the Toni&Guy way. Okay? Or let's say to that. So we show like East meets West. I'd love to do that.
Create a bridge, cultural
bridge. It kind of happens in our Toni&Guy annual celebrations. This year we celebrated 60 years of Toni&Guy. And we did have collaborations from different parts of the world showcasing different things as well. So that was really, really amazing. I think, you know, fashion weeks are glamorous. They're fantastic. I've worked behind and I love the energy. That's something I'd like to do again. But again, show a bit of Pakistan in there.
And international?
Internationally, I mean, it would be really nice to work with a brand like Chanel.
Timeless.
Yeah, very timeless. And if you're talking about a new brand.
Before I forget, what do you think about Kate Middleton's hair?
I love it.
The Chelsea blow dry.
Yeah, I love that blow dry look. I think it relates globally, universally, across the board, every country.
What is the secret to her hair?
She has great stylists, very good products she uses. And obviously the electricals that she uses are also very good. Again, that's another thing that we do. We do our own electricals. So from our hair dryers to our styling products. And I can only talk about what we do because that's what I know.
Yeah.
And honestly, a great haircut will look great when you're in the salon and leave. But if you don't give your client the right product, the right expertise of how they should do their hair at home, and the right electrical tool, they're going to be stuck, however great that haircut is.
But what about the no makeup look, keeping things effortless, keeping things easy? Why is it that sometimes when we have to look good, we have to make an effort?
Because you have to, number one, no makeup look is good skin. To start with good skin and have a good base for makeup. This Gen Z, okay, for example, want a no makeup look, but that's harder to achieve. And because you need to start with, a good
Skin
routine.
prep.
Yeah, a good routine for every day, plus your prep. We have a lot of young people now, in fact, a few even in our team who we've hired to come in because they have this knowledge of the no makeup look.
And they know these TikTok trends and they know how to create content.
They know how to make content.
What did you think of Mahira Khan's wedding look?
I loved it.
You loved it?
Yeah, it was.
On this topic, I thought of her face on her wedding.
It was absolutely gorgeous. She's again, her base is really clean, really flawless. So when you have a kind of a clean base to work with, like I said, if your beauty routine, I mean, honestly, if you're going to cover yourself with foundation, you'll always have to cover. But if you have good skin to begin with and you eat well, you live well, you exercise well, you do
it's
everything.
Holistic wellness, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Saeeda, it's been such an inspirational, educational, and really uplifting chat. Being a woman, I have a lot to look forward to. Keeping true values of integrity, humility, and just not being scared. If I were to ask you, as your parting message to anyone watching, to someone who wants to get into the beauty industry and is scared, what is the one thing as a woman especially you would impart to them to really take the first step towards their dream?
I would say, look, being scared is something you will go through. But you need to believe in yourself. You need to give yourself the skill set that will make you believe in yourself. And you need to just do that to the 100% of your ability to get into this, right? People think it's very easy to cut hair or color hair or put makeup on. It's a pair of scissors, but it's not. It's actually now very scientific. Go through the process, learn. And the more you learn, you'll have little hardships. Face it. Take criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Take it. If somebody says to you, that's not good enough, do it again. Do it again. Do it 100 times.
My mother tells me that. Sometimes I tell her someone said this and they also said that. She's like, then maybe they were right. Did you think about that?
Yeah. And get yourself to a point where you only see one thing, that you want to get to that goal.
That's beautifully, but I can't put this any better. Thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. It was really an honor, and I think anyone watching this episode, it's a true masterclass of not just beauty, fashion, but female empowerment and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much to my really real viewers. Today's episode was different. We had many reasons to smile, not just with Bake Time, but with a woman who has been honest about her journey, not just at the top, but boulders that she overcame. And just a little takeaway for me was, be a little careful with your social media presence, with cancel culture. Be more inclusive in your language. And if you're dreaming, take that first step. Take care. See you next week, and Allah Hafiz.